Welcome inside Ross-Ade Stadium, where Ohio State earned its 9th win of the year, beating Purdue 34-10. Ohio State's 8th straight win by at least 18 points. It's appropriate to say here at the home of the Boilermakers, the train just keeps on rolling for the Buckeyes.
Well put, Dan. Yeah, this was, just a quietly dominant performance. Kind of a boring game in some ways, especially second half seemed to drag on, but Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin were really in sync with each other, as they have been all season. 10 targets, 10 receptions for Jeremiah in this game. The chemistry between the two of them really was the top thing that stood out to me, and the defense getting quicker stops than they did against Penn State. Talked to Caleb Downs after the game. He said that was a big point of emphasis for them. Really, Ohio State kind of controlled the game, controlled the clock, controlled the time of possession in this one. Would have been more lopsided if not for a 70-yard Bo Jackson run that got called back and a Julian Sayin, rare mistake, Julian Sayin throwing an interception down near the goal line. But overall, finishes with over 300 yards. I believe it was 82% completions, and keeps improving on some Heisman numbers. And it was funny because after the game, Jeremiah said the Heisman is Julian's to win, and Julian said the Heisman is Jeremiah's to win. So some mutual respect paid there.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, First Bank of Central Ohio, the official bank of 11 Warriors from game day to workday. First Bank of Central Ohio is in your corner. You talked about the Heisman. One of the big storylines of the week coming in was Ohio State starting Heisman campaigns for Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith, and I certainly think they both built on those today. Probably helped statistically of a department for Jeremiah that Carnell Tate did not play today. He was held out. Precautionary reasons. Sounded like he was feeling a little tight before the game, and so Ohio State, knowing that it was probably going to beat Purdue pretty comfortably, did not take any chances today. Held out Phillip Daniels as well. Joshua Padilla did not play. We'll get back to them, but sticking with Julian and Jeremiah for a minute. I think it sounded like I wasn't fair, but it sounded like Julian was kind of hard on himself after the game. Like he didn't feel like it was his best game. He did have the one interception in the red zone, which I would say was honestly probably his worst decision of the year. Throwing it back, over the middle into a pack of defenders. C.J. Donaldson was wide open, could have at least gotten to the 1 or 2 yard line by dumping it off to him. And so that was a mistake. I mean, otherwise, he was 27 of 33 for 300 free yards. It's just the guy just continues. You're talking 6 out of 9 games now he's thrown for 300 yards. He's consistently throwing 80+% games, which to do it with the consistency that he's done it is almost unheard of. Just week in and week out, the guy delivers, and I think that Heisman conversation is going to be interesting this week because it was around halftime of the game. Ohio State kicking off an hour later than Indiana Penn State. It was like Julian Sayin's the clear favorite now in the Heisman race. He's had this dominant first half. Meanwhile, Indiana's struggling to beat Penn State. Fernando Mendoza leads a game-winning drive against Penn State, and all of a sudden he's getting talked about as that Heisman frontrunner again. Maybe a moot point in the end because if both these teams win out, they're going to meet in the Big Ten championship game. But to me, for Julian, I don't think the consistency of what he's doing should be overlooked in that Heisman conversation because people will talk about, a Heisman moment. Well, you don't need a Heisman moment when you're dominating your competition week in and week out. And that's something, really, of what we saw from Indiana today, you can now say there's no other team in college football who's dominating opponents week in and week out the way Ohio State is right now.
Very well said, Dan. And, Fernando Mendoza struggled like the rest of that game, and then he leads one game-winning drive. Like, he was part of the reason that Indiana needed a game-winning drive in the first place. When just last week, Ohio State dominated Penn State. Julian was 20 of 23 for 316 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. Fernando Mendoza's stat line, as great as that last drive was, very cool moment, he was 19 of 30 for 189, a score and a pick, and yet he's getting all this Heisman hype over Julian. I mean, what are we doing here? Very confusing to me, very perplexing that people aren't willing to look beyond the context of one drive, one moment, like you said, at the end of the game. And to your point, it will be settled likely on the field when Ohio State and Indiana continue to look like they're on that crash course for the Big Ten title game if they both handle their business down the stretch of the season.
And for those who are wondering, this is going to be the week, but Ohio State moves back to a number 1 spot in the Big Ten power rankings. Yeah. I'm sure some people have been waiting for that to happen. Now we have that common opponent from the last 2 weeks. Yes, Indiana had to play at Penn State. Ohio State had Penn State at home, but I think there was kind of a feeling going into the game. I mean, we make our picks for the Skull Session. We both picked Indiana to win. I think we were both kind of thinking Penn State's going to be defeated. There were reports of low energy practice this week. It was like, oh, Indiana's going to blow them out. They're going to take advantage of Ohio State beating them up and blow them out by even more. And they almost lost to Penn State. So I do come out of today's game feeling like, Ohio State's the clear number 1 team in the country based on what we've seen. And it's like a game like today, there wasn't necessarily anything super spectacular about it. It's just, this is just what this team is doing this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, they take care of business week in and week out. They're so, it's methodical. It's not so much of like, off to the races and go score, 50 points every week, though. Second quarter was pretty dominant, 24 points for the Buckeyes. But it's just week in and week out, this team is taking care of business. It's doing what it needs to do. And if it can continue to do that, all its goals are still in front of it.
Yeah, I think it's worth, we mentioned it earlier, circling back to the offensive line discussion for a little bit, because Ohio State's depth got tested in this game. You had both Joshua Padilla and Phillip Daniels out, Joshua Padilla being the right guard who's normally rotating with Tegra Shabola, and Phillip Daniels being the normal starting right tackle. Ian Moore gets his first start today, and from, it's, you want to review film before you really make bold statements about the offensive line and how they played, but I thought Ian Moore held up pretty well from what I could tell. It was not a great day from Tegra Shabola today, even just like what we saw, the inconsistencies. There were a couple of blown pass blocking assignments, and one of them led to a sack. You had some missed assignments in the run game too. They rotated in Gabe Van Sickle for a series with him.
Ethan Aniama got in there for a series at right tackle too.
Yes, yeah, they rolled him a little with Ian Moore, but Gabe Van Sickle, I think that the fact that they still wanted to rotate even though they had to go another spot down the pecking order, I think was a little bit telling. I'll be interested to see if that competition is still ongoing at right guard when Joshua Padilla is back healthy. Curious, I don't think there was much of an update from Day. You were in the Day post-game presser. I don't know how much of an update there was on the guard situation.
He said that Joshua Padilla, he hopes that Joshua Padilla will be back next week. If he's not able to come back next week, he will be back the week after is what they expect. So sounds like by the time you get to Michigan postseason, they should have Joshua Padilla back, which is good news because I agree with you. I mean, Tegra Shabola, not to beat down on one player too much, but it's just the fact of the matter, I don't think we can really sugarcoat it anymore. For a guy who's started 25 games at Ohio State now, it's not good enough. It's just, the play is just not good enough for a guy who's supposed to be a veteran of that offensive line. There's just too many missed assignments, and it's happening too frequently on a weekly basis to feel like Tegra Shabola is playing at the level that you should expect from an Ohio State right guard. So, it kind of feels like a broken record the way we talk about this team, the way we talk about this game. It's like we say it every week. Julian Sayin is awesome. Jeremiah Smith is awesome. The defense is awesome. The running game and the offensive line are the two lingering questions. If there's going to be something that's going to derail this team in the biggest games of the year, that sure looks like what it's going to be. Because against today, not a very good Purdue defense. They still struggled to consistently run the ball. I don't know if the final numbers ended up being Bo Jackson broke off some nice runs, Isaiah West broke off some nice runs, but there's just too many of those runs that are getting stopped, no gain, 1 yard, 2 yard. It's still happening too much, and it honestly kind of feels like the offensive line is going the wrong direction. I feel like they were better early in the season than they've been the last few weeks. And, some of that having to do with guys in and out of the lineup. Like you said, I thought Ian Moore, from what I saw, got to go back and watch it more, I thought he did pretty well stepping in there at right tackle. But, I do think overall, this is another game that certainly left something to be desired for the offensive line. And I think you feel like, okay, you got to figure that out the next 2 weeks before you go play Michigan, before you get into postseason.
Yeah, there were several runs in this game where I thought even like the running backs outperformed what the offensive line gave them, particularly Bo and Isaiah West. I mean, there was that one run, I think it was a third down conversion, where Bo gets hit in the backfield, like full stop. The tackler had a full head of steam at him, and momentum has almost been completely stopped, and he somehow bounces backward, spins out of it, and powers forward for a first down. I mean, Bo looked, this might have been sneakily Bo's best game for me. Like, to do it against real Big Ten competition, and I know Purdue's defense certainly isn't the best in the Big Ten, but wasn't his best statistical day, but just the way he was able to generate yards after contact, get more than the offensive line gave him. And I'd say the same about Isaiah West. There were a lot of nice inside runs where Isaiah West was just like carrying piles of defenders with him for extra yardage. Those two are clearly separating as Ohio State's two best backs, with C.J. Donaldson continuing to be used in the low red zone.
Touchdown vulture, as I've been calling yes. C.J. Donaldson. His carries are going down, but he still manages to get those, a couple short yardage touchdowns a game.
The 1 yard touchdown runs, that's C.J. Donaldson is there. He hears that call. But yes, those two, and it's good to see them getting definitely the lion's share of the workload there in the running back room. Do want to touch on the good defensive performance today as well. But another guy who stood out was Jayden Fielding. Career-long 49-yard field goal, drilled it. I mean, we don't have a great angle from the press box, but looked like it was just right down the middle with plenty of leg, and hit another 45-yarder. Brandon Ennis, too, had a nice punt return in this game. Generally trending up stocks for Ohio State special teams in this game. And that's a good sign, because I know it's been a concern for a lot of people.
Yeah, huge for Jayden Fielding, I think, to be able to have that kind of performance, have 2 long field goals, because that's been the big question with him is really that range. If they need him in a big game to kick a 50-yard field goal, is he capable of doing that? And I think the way he performed today certainly increases your confidence. Playing outdoors, a cooler day, playing on grass, for him to make 2 big kicks like that, I think that's certainly a big confidence, momentum boost for Jayden Fielding, but he hopefully can build on. As you said, another great performance by the defense today. Did end up giving up double digits, but that lone touchdown came at the end of the game when all the starters were out of a game on defense. So before that, I think first drive, Purdue scores and gets 3 points. After that, the defense was as dominant as ever. Jermaine Matthews coming up with a big interception, and really just, again, the beat kind of goes on for this Matt Patricia defense. They're just doing their thing week in and week out.
A lot of physicality today, man, especially from the safeties. Caleb Downs had some really big hits. Jalen McClain had one. They were just dominating on the inside run game, too, in a lot of ways. I thought there was like 1 or 2 that Purdue might have broken for some chunks in the ground game, but otherwise they had nothing there, especially up the middle. Edric Houston had a pretty good day, I thought. He's continued to trend up since some early setbacks in the season. Started today, which I didn't see. We didn't see Tywan Malone, I don't think, get into this game, so don't know what's going on there. Jason Moore was with the backups at the end of the game at the 3-tech position. So great all-around performance from the defensive line. Caden Curry made some plays. Sonny Styles was cut quietly sound. It was just another one of those games. They've had a few of them this year where there wasn't like one guy who really stood out above the rest, but they were just so smothering throughout the course of the game that it was an amazing team defensive effort, and it's more of a compliment to the unit, which continues to be the best in the country.
Well, we'll have lots more to discuss with Ohio State football as they come off this 34-10 win over Purdue, play UCLA in a home night game next week at the Shoe. We'll be back tomorrow for 11 Warriors Live, noon on Sunday, so you'll want to catch us then with Chase Brown. For now, he's Andy Anders. I'm Dan Hope. Thanks again to our sponsor, First Bank of Central Ohio. This has been After Carmen. Have a great day.